this is maybe a thing we're gonna...
Did you check to see if that's an actual word?
I did not. It's an adjective. Yes, it is a word.
Oh my golly. Okay.
Ha! Take that, Dad.
I wasn't trying to play gotcha. I just wanted to
Oh
make
yeah,
sure.
I'm not trying to play gotcha right after I hit record.
I didn't know you had turned it on.
You saw me hit the record button.
No, I didn't. You were flipping things. I wasn't paying attention.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, we're maybe gonna start doing this. We just like having discussions every once in a while, so. I'm Nathan. This is my dad, Steve.
Greetings.
This is a very basic setup, but in the upper right there will be the video we will be looking at and discussing. It's not guaranteed everything will be political. It depends on where the discussion goes and what subjects we have. So anyways, let's look into it. So this one is Migrants Ambush U.S. Marines Get Deported Instantly by Cash Jordan. Posted 10 hours ago.
I got the driver. Hey. No, man. Acuéstate ahí. No, enseña la mano. You hit the bags? Here, boys.
So, body cam video of a shocking altercation between gang members and Border Patrol agents
Are you getting audio?
Yeah.
I'm not.
What? You should be. This thing loves to give me problems. I do a lot of... Oh. Is the device turned off? I thought I left it on. Maybe it turns off automatically. There.
There we go.
That's what's it. There. So now it should be working. So let's restart it. Hear it now?
I got the driver. Hey. No, man. Acuéstate ahí. No, enseña la mano. You hit the bags? Here, boys.
So, body cam video of a shocking altercation between gang members and Border Patrol agents has been released. And it shows what happens when those tasked with keeping our country safe encounter some of the most dangerous criminals on the entire planet, who were busy trying to sneak contraband into Mexico using a pickup truck. And the shocking thing is, this isn't the only immigrant gang trying to arm itself with weapons they illegally obtain right here in America.
More than 24 members of a notorious Venezuelan gang here in New York City tonight have been indicted on a slew of federal charges. This comes as the Trump administration steps up its crackdown of gangs linked to immigrants.
So I don't know if you know about this, but like 3D printers have been used to make gun parts.
Oh yeah.
I forget what they're called, but there are guns that have their serial numbers filed off so that they're not able to be tracked through the national registry.
They have kits that you can make, and they don't come with serial numbers.
Oh yeah.
They're not filed off. They're just not there.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it's like there's tons of ways to hide guns, and it's like I can definitely see why people have the stance of being pro-gun, like they want to have their right to bear arms. I'm not against that. I just think there's not enough safety precautions specifically. Like, gun kits should have the serial numbers. It's already a felony to possess a gun that doesn't have the serial number on there.
That has had it filed off, you mean?
I don't think it is specific to being filed off. Like if you make gun parts and assemble a gun out of a 3D printer, I'm pretty sure if you get caught with that, that is also a felony. I could be wrong.
Well, it would come under the heading of these gun kits or whatever. I would think it would be the same thing, and I'm not sure that the laws have caught up with the technology right now.
Yes, there is definitely some lag behind that. I know there's I forget if it's gun conventions or
Gun shows.
yeah, gun shows. You don't. I forget. I think they don't have to do background checks at gun shows. I might be wrong. I remember hearing something like that.
As far as I know, they don't. And if you have person-to-person sales, one gun owner selling his gun that he's had for a while to another person, there's no check there either.
Yeah, they definitely need to have a better tracking system, probably more closely related to like how cars are with titles and such. So like when a gun is sold, the title of the gun has to be sold so that they know who it belongs to and such.
Yeah, you license other things. I mean, and I don't know. You use the example of a vehicle, and I think that's an apt example. I mean, without it being operated appropriately, it most certainly is a weapon.
Oh yeah.
Can be used or used negligently, let's say, to other people's harm.
Yeah.
And to me, philosophically, the overriding rule of thumb, if you will, ought to be, my freedom runs up until it encroaches on yours.
Yeah.
And if we're to have equal freedom, that means I need to be responsible in using whatever it is, whether we're talking about a car or a gun or whatever,
Yes.
so that your freedom isn't taken away.
Yeah. Because if we're not going to have that kind of... I would argue that is a very low bar. Because if we're not going to have that low bar, then people should not be allowed hammers. They should not be allowed dinner knives. They should not be allowed forks. Because guess what? Everything's a weapon, even our fists.
Yeah. Well, you don't.
But
you
the
don't,
more dangerous weapons, we need to
yeah.
better keep track of.
You don't typically see people using dinner forks for a weapon. But that being said, things that can cause mass destruction, and we're not talking weapons of mass destruction.
I was about to say, you probably need to clarify that.
We're not talking weapons of mass destruction that they didn't find in Iraq when Saddam Hussein was there. But what we're talking about is things that can kill or maim in numbers. I would say 3, 4, or more at least.
I think that would need a further qualifier,
Yeah.
because if you want to say 3, 4 at least, well, I could stab 3 or 4 people with a knife in a few seconds.
Well,
I
true.
think,
But I'm thinking of one fell swoop.
yeah, you're thinking of like if someone starts shooting into a crowd or something.
Right.
I lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay. It's the same thing. You hear about these mass shootings, and I think that's the measures, like 3 or 4. I think 4 is the number typically for a mass shooting. I think that's how they categorize it.
Definition
And
of mass shooting. I misspelled
for crying out
definition.
loud, I mean, it wasn't that many years ago that you used to be able to go to the mall, or you used to be able to go to Walmart or whatever, and not have to worry about these kinds of things.
Mass shooting, as defined by the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, an event in which one or more individuals are actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a populated area.
So they don't have a number of casualties that qualifies, but a number of 3 or more in a mass killing. Okay.
Well, they say people, so I think 2 or more, because a plural of a person is people.
It says 3 or more right there.
Oh, that's further down than I read. Define. The FBI
Yeah,
just
it's
said a
the-
minimum number of casualties, but the U.S. statute, Violent Crimes Act of 2012, defines mass killing as 3 or more in a single incident.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a whole other subject area, skimming versus reading deeply at.
Well, you went further than I had a chance to.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway. But yeah. I mean, my goodness. I'll give it away. I'm 58 years old. And, I mean, I grew up in a time where you never heard of anything like this.
Yeah, and I forget which European country. I want to say it's one of the peninsulas. It's either Sweden or I think Finland. They apparently have a gun culture rather similar to ours, but they don't have the mass shootings that we do. Maybe things have changed in the years since I found out about that, but they have a much more responsible gun culture at the moment than the U.S. So it's like some years ago, I used to question some people that were against regulations on the Second Amendment, using the example of, well, the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. Well, what is an arm exactly? Because according to that kind of logic, the populace should be able to arm themselves with frag grenades.
Yeah, right.
And I found this out recently. You actually could have that as long as it's registered. Yeah, you can have pretty much any weapon. You could have a tank, you could have a nuclear missile. As long as it's registered, it would be legal.
Interesting. Well, to me, it all boils down to what's reasonable. And of course, we're in this day and age now where we're fighting over that.
Yeah.
And once again, you know, if somebody else wants to claim freedom that's going to infringe on mine, then we have a problem. In
Yes.
other words, they can't just be able to have a weapon and do anything they want with it. And there's got to be reasonable checks and balances to be able to ensure that for the most part, I mean, I understand you're going to have incidents where things happen that were not intended.
Yeah, like the Columbine, back
Yeah.
before this became common.
Right. But at least when you have things registered, then it's not so hard for the law enforcement to track down who's doing what. And if there's a parent that's not locking up a gun, we can figure that out. If it's somebody who's selling guns under the table, the fact that that was registered at some point when it was initially sold will help in the investigation to find out, okay, who's got it now and how did they obtain it, and so on. To me, that's not unreasonable. And if we're in such a big hurry to have a gun that we can't have those types of reasonable regulations, then what's the hurry, I guess, is the question.
I have to wonder if the term that's being used as part of the issue is like, people say gun control. It might come across more effective if we say gun management. Because, like, for gun nuts, and I'm not using that as derogatory, I have a friend, Michael, who loves his... I believe he has an...
i.e. gun enthusiasts.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
I have a friend, Michael, who I think it's an AR-15, but anyway, he has a a full auto gun that has
Some sort of assault rifle, anyway.
yeah, it's a assault rifle essentially with a paint job of an American flag and eagle on that. He's one of those gun enthusiasts. So I have no issue with those people inherently. It's more the personality. But I have to wonder if saying gun management would be better than saying gun control.
It could be. But you know, to bring up an old issue that has been with us for quite a while, and there are my brother is one. He has been, so far as I know, a member of the National Rifle Association, and when he signed up for that many years ago, he's older than I am. You know, these types of issues weren't a big thing. It was more about, okay, we're going to promote hunting, we're going to promote the hobby, and these types of things. And it's just over time, where it would seem, anyway, that the National Rifle Association has become, I wouldn't say a puppet, but a definite arm that
Maybe the word you're looking for is like a propaganda tool.
well, something in that ballpark regarding the industry as a whole. It seems to me that the goal isn't safety, the goal isn't responsible use and storage. It seems to me the goal is arms sales.
Yes, definitely with the... I don't know if it's still there. I know the NRA had a TV channel for a while. I don't know if it's still running, but they had segments where they were pretty much just advertising, like, gun accessories and such. Look, funny enough, I remember a specific example. They had shows targeted towards women specifically, because they had the slogan of, if you get the woman, you get the family. So they were doing thing. I don't know if they were bedazzling magazines,
Who knows?
but I know at the very least they were doing like colored magazines and all that kind of stuff. So, anyways, I think we've been talking about this one bit for like 10 minutes, and we're not even a minute into the video.
Okay,
So we should
action.
yeah.
Mexican citizens are facing federal charges after they were allegedly traveling in a car carrying 180,000 rounds of ammunition in southern Colorado. During that stop, officers found 180 boxes of ammunition, each of which contained 1,000 rounds.
He's a hitman, a soldier for organized crime.
How difficult would it be to do your job if there wasn't this free flow of arms coming from the United States?
It would be hard because the U.S. is the chief supplier. That's where we get the new exclusive guns we need.
27 suspected transnational TDA gang members indicted in a historic RICO conspiracy. Their alleged crimes began 2 years ago when they arrived in New York City from Venezuela seeking asylum, according to investigators.
The American dream is not doing armed robberies. The American dream is not discharging guns. The American dream is not shooting.
I mean, plenty of people go to the gun range just for that, so...
For what?
Well, the guy was saying the American dream is not to go around shooting guns and other things like robbing people. Like, sure, I can get behind that, but a lot of people's dreams are... Like, Michael, at one point, told me he was toying around with the idea of buying weapons, recording the sound of them being fired, and selling them off to get the next gun on the list, and just essentially getting a audio catalog of gunfire sounds. So, for sure, firing guns is part of some people's dream, but anyways.
But before you move on, couple of things. Now, this video ties in with the whole immigration issue.
Yes.
And I think it's important to point out that that clip we just saw was talking about ones who had, with malice, entered the United States to do nefarious things.
Yes.
But that their obtaining of the weapons was from within the United States. It wasn't
Yes.
from outside bringing it in. So that's interesting. Why is it that we are okay with, or up to this point, have not addressed the issue of it being so easy for people, regardless if they're from outside of our country or from within, to be able to get massive amounts of weaponry and ammunition. This is an interesting point. There are politicians who have decried any kind of regulation in this regard, and they say, you know, you can pass all kinds of laws, but it's not going to stop it. And I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, let's using the old Latin reductio ad absurdum, if we're going to take that attitude, then why have any laws? I mean, because
the point of laws is to help facilitate guidelines for living as a society while minimizing harm to
it's
individuals.
a social contract.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
which is why a lot of people are against the super rich. Like, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people, especially for some reason young women, are really trying to defend Luigi Mangione, even though he, of course, allegedly assassinated the guy because he's not convicted yet.
So we've got him on camera doing it, but anyway.
Well, I mean, we don't literally have him on camera. He was hooded up and such, so you can't say for sure. But when he was apprehended, he had like a manifesto or something like that about
I'm
it.
sure he was still wearing the same clothes that he was on camera with.
No, that was days later.
Was it?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
he was caught in a McDonald's in another state.
Okay, all right, well, whatever.
But anyways, that's like people are really against the like super rich on that kind of principle.
Yeah.
So.
So you've got this piece, and then you've got this headline, I guess you will, where we stop the clip.
Yeah.
Gang members are targeting law enforcement. There's another issue. Heavens. Right now, you can legally obtain equipment that is, whether it's flak jackets or armor-piercing bullets or these kinds of things, that are stronger than what law enforcement typically uses.
I can agree with the flak jackets, because reasonably no sane person is going to need to own a flak jacket. That's really something meant more for like a war.
Yeah.
The armor-piercing rounds, though, would have a defense under the idea of gun ranges and such. So I can understand and
So
defend.
we can't hit a target without an armor-piercing bullet?
No, they're wanting to hit a target with an armor-piercing bullet.
And what does that do or prove? I don't understand.
It provides a different kind of experience. So you know how, like, when we play Magic the Gathering, we use different decks.
Right.
A bullet is like, each bullet is like a different kind of deck. It provides a different experience, different feel of the gun, etc. So, to gun enthusiasts, that would make a difference.
Well,
Like, it could also depend on what kind of target they want to shoot. 'Cause, like, if they're wanting to shoot, like, a pop can, they could take 2 pop cans to a range, shoot one with a regular bullet, shoot another with an armor piercing, see what the different kind of damage is, and who knows, maybe even hang it up as, like, some kind of art piece or something.
so, okay. So then there needs to be something reasonable, again, to bring some kind of reasonable limit. Meaning, and here we're talking management, but someone would say, well, you're just using that to cover up the word control. Armor-piercing bullets just running around wherever.
Yes.
That puts law enforcement in jeopardy. I mean, we talk about back the blue and wave the flag like you crazy, but then do we really back the blue?
Yeah.
When it comes down to it. So if you want to shoot it at a shooting range, and this is difficult too, because if you're in the rural countryside, you've got shooting ranges that maybe it's on an honor system and you're going there and there really is no supervision.
Yeah, like for instance, on the way from here to Downsville, you go by a farm that has a sign out that it's also I forget if it's a gun ranch or a gun seller. I'm not sure if that place is registered as a gun distributor.
Yeah, I have no idea. Well, in Pepin County, I'm aware of at least one range where it's open to public use, and typically, you know, there's not someone there, certainly not 24/7. There's not somebody with published hours and a gate that's locked when they're not there.
Yeah.
And so, in theory, this would be a place, you know, you're on your honor, where you've got ranges where you're in more urbanized settings. You know, those are much more control, and you know, I could see in a situation like that, provided licensed sales of armor-piercing bullets are ongoing and for use at the range, and
Yeah.
you use what you're going to use there, or if you've got some extra, then you have to have a locker there, and
Yeah. Actually, there is a precedent, I don't know within the gun industry, there is a style of, I don't know if it's fast food or what, but in Japan, they have, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a sit-in kind of fast food place, I guess. They have a conveyor belt along the counter, and food comes out on the plate. And if you want it, you just take the plate, eat it, and then set the plate to the side. You don't set it back on the counter. Because what you do is, once you're done eating, you take the plates to the register, and you'll be charged by the plate. So I'm thinking, like, people don't need, like, armor piercing or heat for, you might not know, HEAT stands for High Explosive Anti-Tank. I'm not a gun enthusiast myself. I just know an abnormal amount thanks to video games.
Okay.
I don't think they need those special kind of rounds outside of gun ranges, so they should probably be restricted to gun ranges.
Something where there's some serious supervision going on.
Yeah. Anyways, we've gone through 1 more minute of the video, and we've been talking for another 10 to 15 minutes. So
what? We haven't talked about how long these videos are going to be, or
yeah. So
this is just a dry run.
So what I'm gonna say is, for the rest of this video, we'll listen to.
How much is there left to go?
It's a 15-minute video. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna listen to the video clips that he puts in, and then we'll listen to him talk. And once the next set of video clips starts up, we'll pause and discuss there.
All right.
What on earth do people need this much ammunition for? That's crazy. This could arm a small army. And what nobody's talking about is this reveals that the criminals recently caught attacking Border Patrol agents, they probably got everything they used to commit crime from our country. And although it's against the law for those in the country without permission to own firearms, for some reason, these worst of the worst criminals are getting their hands on what look like military-grade weapons. Not just in Colorado or at the Texas border, but also in sanctuary cities like New York, where weapon-related laws are so tough, legal residents and law-abiding citizens are practically unable to buy such things. Yet criminals who don't abide by any of our laws seem to have no problem stocking up, which reveals just how tough a job Border Patrol has on the front lines of America's war on illegal immigration. A war that, if lost, could allow dangerous criminal groups to send our country into a downward spiral, which sadly could resemble the chaos taking place in various parts of Central and South America right now. And that brings us to the real reason Border Patrol agents were recently attacked and were seen fending for their lives while trying to keep our country safe. The people that are coming in here, they do not want anything to do with the American dream. Instead, they're here to take whatever they can from our country and use it to empower themselves and commit more crime, both here and in Mexico. Ammo, weapons, you name it, it's being taken out of our country and brought somewhere else. And it's also smuggled into the hands of dangerous individuals who should never be in our country, like these guys.
27 suspected transnational TDA gang members indicted in a historic RICO conspiracy. Their alleged crimes began 2 years ago when they arrived in New York City from Venezuela seeking asylum, according to investigators.
Whether it's gangs at the border or criminal gangs in New York, it's important to understand that all of these organizations, they are connected. And they're out there stealing and selling weapons to each other and cooperating as part of a growing criminal underworld. And as you're about to see, even though many of these people entered our country under the cover of darkness through a previously wide open border, which is still not 100% secure, allowing illegal immigration like this is not making the world a better place.
February 12, 2025, Border Patrol agents assigned to the U.S. Border Patrol Fort Brown Station Flex Team in Brownsville, Texas, were conducting ground surveillance to deter smuggling activities at a location approximately 17.5 miles east of the Veterans Bridge port of entry and 0.04 miles north of the Rio Grande River. At approximately 6:40 p.m. Central Standard Time, Fort Brown BPAs located a group of individuals occupying a GMC Denali pickup truck near a boat ramp off Highway 4 in Brownsville, Texas. BPAs reported that they believed the subjects were attempting to smuggle firearms into Mexico using a boat.
So here we have the shocking footage of Border Patrol agents encountering criminals who were trying to smuggle weapons from America into Mexico, and everybody here was in the country illegally. And what's shocking about this operation is these suspects, they were heavily armed, just like Border Patrol. But not only were these criminals strapped and ready for action in case Border Patrol showed up to stop their operation, when law enforcement was alerted to their operations by SpaceX, which apparently is nearby the location this took place, our officers had to quickly act, because when they approached these crooks, as you're about to see, they did more than just evade arrest. So here we have body cam from one of the officers. 2 officers were equipped with cameras, and right now what they're doing is they're crouching down. There's no audio, because the way these body cameras work is they have a 2-minute buffer that is constantly recording before something happens and before an officer activates the camera. And what you're seeing now is them hiding in the bushes after locating these smugglers, and now the officers decide to move in, and what do? They make a run for the truck from multiple angles. They pull out their flashlights, and look at what happens right here. You've got a guy who runs out of the truck, and that guy is armed with a weapon. Now, this officer, he's by the driver of the truck, and he's got to stop the driver of that truck from trying to do anything reckless. This guy's hands are both outside of the vehicle. That's good. The officer can see them. But as you just saw, one of these guys exited the vehicle carrying something, and he ran around back away from the agent that approached the driver. And that move by the guy who escaped puts everybody in danger, as you're about to see. But already this appears to be a wild situation, because Border Patrol's got these guys located. They're watching them. They've got them surrounded, yes, but these crooks were all the way out in the middle of nowhere. And they've probably done this hundreds of times before. These guys are professionals. And even though one guy exited the truck and tried to run away, there are still people inside that vehicle, and they're not exactly friendly.
Hey, I got the driver. Hey. No, mano. Hey, amaga los gatos. No, muevan las manos, Bájate. Acuéstate ahí. No, enseña la mano.
So after this, we've got the second angle where the other two officers track down the guy who tried to run away. But thank God he was able to get the driver out of the truck and disarm him. And this is so important because that truck, if the person in it wanted to drive it in an erratic manner, that could put the officers in danger. Once the driver is removed from the truck and placed under arrest, then the officer goes inside to see what's in there and figure out what type of threat they're dealing with. Again, they might have found these guys, they might have snuck up on them, but they have no idea what they're doing inside that vehicle or who's even in there or how many people they're even dealing with. There's even a point where they say they hear voices of other smugglers who were waiting in a boat.
Did you get the bags? Hey, hear voices.
But even though the people who these smugglers were meeting with managed to escape, the guys in this truck were taken down. So here we have the
so maybe it's like I'm partially critical. It's like there was like one guy that got out and started running away. I do think in this kind of case, since they were running, I think they probably should have opened fire on that guy just to try and stop him at the least. Maybe some warning shots if not actually aim.
We don't know. We don't have all the facts here. But it would seem to me that you would approach a vehicle in a situation like this where you would technically have people surrounding.
Yeah.
And thus, if he gets, he thinks he's going to run away, he's not actually going to get very far.
Yeah. They brought up that they got at it from a bunch of directions. I couldn't say if they came at it from like a half circle or if they had it fully enveloped, because I only saw like 2 flashlights. But the main thing I want to bring up is this person was extremely self-restrained, while I would have...
The driver in the truck, you mean?
No, the officer wearing the body cam.
Yeah, okay.
I honestly would say that is probably... I don't know the guy personally, so maybe he has some other issues that I don't know about. But at the very least, in this instance, he seems like a model officer to me.
Yeah.
Like, this is someone I would want protecting the public. Because while I think he might have should have fired at least some warning shots or something at the guy fleeing, he had self-restraint. He didn't immediately open fire, which is not something you can say about a lot of regular law enforcement.
And once again, we don't have all the logistics here.
Yeah.
Because in the direction that guy ran, you don't know if there's fellow officers in the distance behind, in which case then if he took a shot, he might be hitting one of, friendly fire, so to speak. But can we address a couple issues here?
Yeah.
So I get it. The gentleman who's doing the commentary on this video.
Yeah, I only see the 2 flashlights.
He's bringing up the problem of gangs coming from south of the border. He's playing up the idea of guns being gotten some way, shape, or form en masse.
Yeah.
From our country and bringing them back to Mexico, and in theory can be used here. I mean, to me, if you've got, I mean, this is similar to what's already going on in Mexico in many cases with the drug cartels. They're looking for a way to make a big gain with the least amount of effort.
Yeah.
And so in the drug running and that, you can see why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they have no regard for anybody other than themselves, and even then, honor among thieves, that's limited as well. But what I fail to hear is, let's talk about, and maybe it comes later in the video. I hope it does. What I fail to hear is, are we looking at this in a big picture thing? In other words, why are the weapons and ammunition that are obtained by these gangs, why are they so easily gained?
Yeah.
I would think instead of trying to catch the horses after they've gotten out of the barn would not be the primary focus. Certainly it's important to do because we have this problem. But
Yeah.
it seems to me we've got to figure out a way to lock the door on the barn better.
Yeah. And I have no evidence for this. I've only heard it as a rumor, really. So I am particularly interested in when Doge eventually gets to the Department of Defense, because I have heard rumors about us apparently sending weapons to Mexico. So I have no clue if that's true or not. But if that is, that will be a huge find if Doge is actually working.
Yeah. And then, of course, okay, so we've got this big argument regarding gangs coming from the South. And I'm not going to say they don't exist. They exist. And they're doing nefarious things. There's no arguing that.
Yeah.
And in this world where the political tribalism goes on, and we can't even agree on the basic facts. I mean, we need to establish the basic facts here, and that's one.
Yeah.
That being said, even with the program that is being ramped up in terms of what's going on with immigration enforcement, it seems like we're spending our resources rounding up a lot of people who are not like these gangs. And so you get these cases where you've got people whose visas are being rescinded, or they may have made a statement where they were in disagreement with the policy of the federal government.
I'm guessing you're referring to that Khalil guy?
Yeah, well, that's one of many cases. But the point is that we're spending a lot of resources on those kinds of situations, and we've got civilians. Granted, they came across the border without all the paperwork in line, so to speak. But that's
not so to speak. They just didn't. But yeah.
Okay, they didn't. But that whole system is broken, and that's a topic for another day. But they're not criminals. They're other than having come across the border without being a regularized citizen. They haven't committed any crimes.
You are factually wrong on that regard, including your exclusion. Because they are working illegally, the companies are illegally employing them.
Okay.
Most likely they're...
Let's qualify what I'm saying then. Because what I'm saying is they're not committing violent crimes.
Yes.
Okay? And I would guess...
I don't want to generalize saying they're not...
Well, there are individual exceptions, but as a rule, most that are coming over here who are I mean, I just listened to a report on National Public Radio this weekend where they were talking about a family. The husband had been building up his own business, for crying out loud, and had a very good reputation at providing whatever service it was he was doing. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, and by the way, he was checking in once a year. He had some sort of a permission. I don't understand the whole system. I don't pretend to know every detail.
Yeah.
But he was voluntarily checking in once a year with ICE.
Yes.
To let them know where he was, what he was up to, and now, since the Trump administration has come in this time around, he went in for his yearly registration or whatever he had to do.
Yeah.
And now this time, they apprehend him and are in the middle of or I think have already deported him back to, I think it was Brazil.
Okay.
And he's got children who are naturalized citizens because they were born here.
Yeah.
And he's got a couple of older children that were not.
Also another subject for another day.
And a wife.
Natural born citizenship.
But I mean, there's no violent crime. There's no seeking to harm anyone. Okay. And we're spending a lot of resources on these kinds of situations, and not on the type that this guy is pointing out here in the video.
I do think you're missing one thing that's not often out of sight, is that when they're apprehending these more violent illegals, a good amount of the time, I'm not going to say a majority because I don't have a solid grasp of the percentage, but I feel it's probably safe to say at least 10 if not 20% of the time they happen to coincide and catch other people that weren't the targets. But in your case, again, I don't know your example, so just assuming everything you say is true, and like the guy had.
Well, it was a Saturday report on NPR.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
But anyways, assuming the guy hasn't had any kind of like police reports on him or anything like that, and he's checking in yearly, then yes, I don't know why ICE would go to that trouble. It's like, if he's checking in yearly, if he's running a business and he has a good reputation, that seems like that kind of person should be the exception.
Well, at least not the priority. Let's go there to start with.
Yes.
Okay? Once again, trying to agree on basic facts. The promise that Mr. Trump made, President Trump made, was that he was going to go after the criminals.
Yes.
And what he meant by that was those who were the greatest danger.
Yeah.
Right? So this doesn't square with me.
Yeah, I do think there is one thing you might not know. Because for some reason the left hasn't really reported on it from what I've seen. Apparently, the southern, you know how there were tent camps on the Mexican side of the border with a bunch of people seeking asylum? Apparently, for the most part, since Trump took office, those have just cleared off. Which raises the question, how many of those people were legitimately seeking asylum? Because apparently there are...
well, you have to live.
Yeah, because...
you can't camp out there forever. I mean, they're not growing crops.
No, but this is a case of people have been in these camps for literal years, waiting for their asylum and to be called for the process and all that. But then within 3 to 6 months it hadn't even been 6 months. Within 2 to 4 months of Trump taking office and cracking down on the border, a majority of these people just leave. that doesn't really line up with the narrative of these people are fleeing violence and have spent months traveling trying to seek asylum.
Well, either that or maybe what we're finding is that they're looking for ulterior ways of finding shelter or safety, knowing that the system, and not every one of them is trying to come across at a border point that is evading. That's why you had those tents.
Yeah.
The
main reason I bring it up is I watched a video, I think it was last week, excuse me, where there was a segment covering this one specific building, and I forget if it was a resident or the owner of the building, but he was saying, like, for roughly 10 years or so, every single room had been full. There were kids running around, and he had literally not heard English in 10 years. And within months of Trump becoming president, the entire place is pretty much abandoned outside of him and one other people, and he can actually hear people speaking English in the rough area now. So that might be an extreme of what has happened, but that is a very shocking and drastic change. So I'm not going to say all of them were looking to be criminals or take advantage of us or anything like that. Because if they're trying to get asylum, I'd prefer to help them. My main issue is if they're breaking rule number 1 of immigration, I cannot trust them to follow the rest of the rules.
Well, perhaps, but let me bring up something here, just as a somewhat of a counterpoint. Again, now this gentleman brings up these videos, and of course, I don't want to diminish the severity of the problem, but I do want to know how severe. In other words, what are the percentages of operations compared to whatever else is going on in terms of border enforcement, where you're getting this kind of a situation, number one.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to sensationalize things. Number two,
like Trump with the border wall.
Yeah, and number two, there it is, the border wall. Okay, so it has been noted that there are technologies that could be employed that would do a better job than just building a wall, and even though we have a wall over some stretches, there are significant areas of the border that have no wall.
Yeah. Like, for instance, the UAVs that we used during Iraq. Like, there are testimony of people from the Middle East saying they could look up into a clear sky and they wouldn't be able to see those unmanned aerial drones. And those things were able to take out combatants without being seen.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100% there is better means. Whether it's more efficient than a UAV or not, I couldn't really say. I'm not that educated in the matter.
Well, the larger point being, are we really interested in solving the problem?
Yes.
Or are we more interested in making something sensationalized so that we have something to be afraid of? And
yeah, that's pretty much all news, right, left, and I don't know of many center outlets, so I couldn't say for that.
Yeah, and so that we've got a wedge issue that we can use at campaign time. It's not to say that this particular incident didn't happen. Clearly it happened. how much of that is actually going on? We're not getting reports on that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, people are too busy having fights about gender identity and
if we were, well, but I mean, even from the administration, their way to, it seems their way to go at this is to proclaim we're going to go after the worst ones first and then do something completely different. We're going to make it so that they don't want to come in here. Well, they've put us scared. There's no question about that. But if what we're talking about in this particular video is a huge concern, which it would be, then it seems to me we would want to be transparent about, to the American public at least, about how we're going to solve this problem, and not just kind of do it haphazardly,
Yeah.
And I've seen interviews with personnel from the Immigration Service who patrol the border, who say they don't have enough agents, who say that they've got these gaps, and that technology could be better employed.
Yeah.
And on and on. So to me, are we really interested in solving the problem or not?
There is some slight good news on one of the points you made. Whether for better or worse, Trump becoming president has apparently resulted in a spike of people volunteering as border agents. So, at the very least, we're getting more border agents. So,
But if they're volunteering, what kind of training are they getting once they volunteer?
I don't know if, they're volunteering as in, you're helping out every other weekend or something like that, or if they're, volunteering to be
and
full-time. I couldn't say.
And maybe they're doing stuff in the background that helps the agents who are better trained.
Yeah.
Freeing them up to do the enforcement that the others might not be suited to do. I don't know.
Yeah.
It would be nice to know.
Anyways,
okay.
Let's finish up the video and then we can finish up the discussion.
So here we have the other two agents who were on the passenger side of the vehicle. This is their approach to that vehicle and their response. Once they get to the scene, the suspect that tried running away with a weapon has been apprehended, and they take this guy into custody as fast as they can. But while they're doing this, they recover a weapon from him that is pretty frightening to look at, to be honest with you. Look at that. That is not a toy. That's the real deal right there. These criminals were incredibly heavily armed. It's frightening that our soldiers have to go up against this stuff every single day on the border. And if you're going to get your hands on something like that when you're inside America illegally, that is not the American dream. That's not the thing that we're told we need to have an open border so that anyone can get access to. This is bad news. But here we have a top-down angle.
Yeah.
That we're told that we have to have an open border. That is so outrageous of a statement. Nobody's telling us we have to have an open border, okay?
Yeah.
I understand we're quibbling may not be the right word. We're having an argument, and you would like to have a genuine discussion to get to the bottom of things and fix it.
I know, it's so hard to have a reasonable debate these days.
Yeah. But when we're using language that makes it out to be, the other side, they're so...
Yeah.
They're evil, and we have to take them down, and blah, blah, blah. No, come on.
I do think Cash Jordan brings up a lot of good points, but there are times where he is very clearly on the right and sometimes either villainizes or propagandizes the viewpoints of the left. He could definitely do a better job of presenting a more fact-based video in some areas.
My point is this. Every road has two ditches. You can go in the ditch too far left, you can go in the ditch too far right.
Yep.
The truth is always somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
And when you make a statement like that, you've gone in the ditch. Enough said.
Yeah.
Angle of how this all went
The
down.
following is an animated overhead recreation of the incident. Please note that it is not to scale and is for illustration purposes only. The first video shown will be from this agent's point of view. As the agent approaches the driver of the vehicle, the driver's side rear passenger exits the vehicle brandishing an Anderson AM-15 rifle. Another responding agent approaches the rear of the vehicle as the armed subject makes his way around the vehicle. At the time of this incident, this agent was not issued a body-worn camera. The agent discharges his CBP-issued M4 rifle
I do want to make it clear. Any kind of law enforcement that does not have a body camera in this day and age, that is 100% a failure.
Yeah.
Because we have numerous pieces of evidence of our trusted, everyday, small-town law enforcement abusing their power. Like, body cameras should not be a thing that should be cut at all. I would expect...
Well, and you would think from the video you could learn things for the next time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But, for sure, if you're going to cut the body cameras, I would prefer that you just cut the entire police department at that point.
The weapon that this guy exiting the vehicle is holding, they identified it, and I forget the name
Yeah, it
of
was a AM-15. I've not heard of it before.
And I was curious to know what it did, what it was capable of doing.
Let's see. Oh, it looks like a variant of the A4. Oh, it wasn't going to let me. We'll go ahead. Well, how about that? Gun manufacturing site that did not want me to be on there, but after I refused to age myself. So let's see. AM stands for Anderson Manufacturing. There are always shortages. Looks like a...
Well, it's got a clip.
Yeah, it's got a clip. It's got a bump stock. Looks like it's got a muzzle breaker that helps prevent flash.
So, do you think that's a automatic weapon then?
I can't tell just from the look of it. I don't... Oh, wait. That might be a safety clip there. That might... It looks like it could be automatic. It might be one of those that has automatic, semi, and a safe firing mode.
Yeah. And we don't have time for this, but it would be interesting to know. Okay, so we know the brand of the weapon. We know who the manufacturer is, and so then the question is, how does it get from the manufacturing floor into the hands of the gang member here?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the issue with, of course, it could have been bought at a gun show, but I think it goes back to the registration issues that we talked about before.
Well, something tells me there might be some other method that's going on that we're not even aware of. And as again, I say, the general rhetoric from organizations like the National Rifle Association is promoting the prevalence of guns. It's not promoting safety. It's promoting the prevalence of guns. Now, they'll argue, I'm sure, oh yeah, see, we've got this safety program and that safety program and whatever. But you tell me, what are they spending the most of their effort on?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's I can't say for sure this is happening, but one of the plot points of Iron Man 1 when it came out in the 2000s was when Tony Stark was an irresponsible philanthropist. He was selling arms to both the United States and I don't know if it was a fictional Middle Eastern nation or if it was named or whatnot, but he was selling to both to basically profit off of war racketeering. And it could be the case of the gun companies are doing this as well.
Yeah,
So-
I would really think it would be. It's no less an issue than when you and I go to the store and we see prices bumped up like crazy, and we say, "Oh, big corporations, you know, they're taking advantage of the little guy." What do we know about these big corporations that are manufacturing the weapons?
Yeah. Also, just a little side tangent since you brought that up. I know a lot of the mainstream outlets have been going on like, oh well, these big companies are probably going to buy supplies in bulk to help fight the price hikes in the short term, and it's like, well, apparently that short term lasted a week.
Yeah, it's over. Okay, let's get back to the video.
Multiple times. Upon hearing the shots fired, 2 more agents respond to the scene and secure the subject and the weapon.
So as you can see from this graphic,
Okay, so there
these
were 4
smugglers
from
that were in
each
their
side.
truck, they were completely surrounded. They were going to get captured. But apparently there was no way to capture the other half of their team, which was waiting for them in a boat and was able to get back across the river. And although this footage is pretty jarring to watch, this wasn't the equivalent of some Hollywood movie where a person gets up their courage and charges criminals to save the world. Border Patrol had a report that these guys were out there, they tracked them down, they surrounded them, and they coordinated their movements to take everyone down safely. But as you're about to see, these criminals, they're getting their weapons from other criminals who don't care at all about our laws, and they're using them to commit crime on both sides of the border.
He's a hitman, a soldier for organized crime.
How difficult would it be to do your job if there wasn't this free flow of arms coming from the United States?
It would be hard because the U.S. is the chief supplier. That's where we get the new exclusive guns we need.
Of the guns that have been seized in Mexico
Well,
and
that's
traced,
an M4 right
70%
there.
come from the United States. There's a
Drum
reason.
mag, but I don't
It's
know
hard to get a
model.
gun legally in Mexico. The regulations are extremely strict.
So in many parts of America, it's also pretty strict as far as who can own a weapon and who can't. In New York, where I am in particular, it's very strict. But even though not all states have the same gun requirements, gun rules aren't the issue here, because these criminals, they're not supposed to have a weapon at all anywhere, yet they're getting them somehow from people who conspire with them and help them break the law. Laws mean nothing to criminals. And the real problem here is that if America had been controlling its border for the last few years, we wouldn't have people inside our country who are trying to stock up on things they shouldn't own to begin with, which these thugs, these gangs, these hit.
So the argument there that he just made is that if we had the border under control, this wouldn't be a problem. I'm sorry. It wouldn't be a problem from those coming from south of the border.
Yes.
But there's still a lot of gun violence in this country. And,
Yes.
and a lot more of it from people who are not coming from south of the border than are.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I don't know why he's not bringing it up. I know he's mentioned it in other videos. Apparently, because the southern border has started to get locked down rather tight, a lot of these cartels and gang members are apparently going to Canada, where the initial, unlike college visas and such, where the initial immigration is a lot easier, and then illegally crossing into the U.S. from there. So, it's like just locking down the southern border is not going to wholly fix this issue.
No,
There
needs to be a comprehensive solution.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's going to be any kind of comprehensive solution.
No.
I think there's going to be a multitude of solutions that come together in the long run.
By comprehensive, I mean there's multiple facets, like you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we definitely need to figure out where these leaks are that are coming out of the U.S., because no way are they getting all of these guns just from their gang members crossing illegally.
Yeah, and once again, if the United States is the prime source for the weapons, common sense tells you, okay, how are these weapons becoming available? That's the question you need to be asking. And then we need to follow up that, once we learn that, okay, what are reasonable things we can do to keep those guns from getting into the hands of criminals who then in turn sell them to drug runners or gangs or whatever. I mean,
yeah, like we could have a ban on bump stocks that help chamber new bullets, but that's not going to help lower the mass shootings. We need
not alone.
We need something that will fix the issue, not a problem caused by the issue.
Yeah, it's not it can't be a game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
It's got to be something where we've got a strategy that is comprehensive, that gets the resources it needs, and this is a two-pronged problem. This video, to me, makes it all about those coming from across the southern border, and that's not the extent of it. The mass shootings, I mean, if you go to Chicago, if you go to Minneapolis, I've heard the worst is like Philadelphia or Los Angeles. You go to these urban centers, there's murders in the news practically on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And
because I know Chicago has a issue with gun violence, because like locking the southern border is not going to solve the gun violence in Chicago.
No, and the same issue applies in terms of gun availability. Well, and if you've got weapons of war available, that's all the worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hitmen then go and use in Mexico and in America to just bolster their criminal enterprises. This should be all the proof we need that there should be a border wall. That would be great for Mexico and America at the exact same time. But as you're about to see, an open, free-flowing border just empowers criminals.
And cartels use straw buyers in gun shops and shows to get Glocks, AK-47s.
Very minor complaint. But why are those guns just hanging off a wall and not secured in some way? Because that is just begging for someone to like smash the windows in at night and just snatch them.
And one other point. They're making the same exact point in terms of the loopholes that we talk about for mass shootings in this country by a United States citizen. Gun shows and what was the other one? Gun shows, and there was one other one.
Gun shows, and I think it was the honor system gun ranges that you were bringing up.
Well, whatever it was, those are the same kinds of loopholes.
Oh no, the gun shows and the kits. That was it.
Okay, they're the same loopholes.
Yeah.
That affect domestic violence. That is also a problem feeding the stuff for the gangs coming over the southern border and so forth.
Yeah.
So again, common sense.
Mm-hmm.
Let's solve the problems where they are at.
Yeah.
And not just make it all about illegal immigrants. It's far bigger.
Yeah. And if someone is going to say like, oh well, if you are in favor of gun control, then you just don't want us to have guns, period. It's like, well, if we're gonna if we're gonna take that approach, we might as well just have put everyone in an internment camp and one person be a dictator.
Yeah.
Because if you can't trust people to some extent, you're not gonna have a society.
Well, and again, reasonable regulations don't mean, oh, they're come to take your guns. No. Come on. I have never heard of anybody on any side of this issue propose that we need to take all the guns away. That's a ridiculous...
I've heard of proposed buybacks, but I've never heard about it being mandatory or
buybacks,
anything
that's
like that.
one thing, but that's voluntary. That's not a requirement. Yeah.
But then even going back to that rumor with the Department of Defense that they might just be apparently giving it to these cartels and gangs anyway. So anyways,
Yep, that's good.
AR-15s, and even machine guns. It's this man's job to smuggle them across the border.
The truth is that it's very easy to get them across. We do hide them in the upholstery or where we can, but the customs agents here don't really focus on that, on searching you. They never search the car.
We saw that for ourselves when we made the journey from the US into Mexico on a busy Thursday night. There were no passport controls, we saw no border officers, and just 2 customs officials checked a sea of cars.
So this video...
And there's a reason for that. They tried that not that long ago. Maybe it was towards the end of the Trump administration. I can't remember, but I remember it being with Trump in the White House. It was his first term. They tried to clamp down on one particular border crossing, or maybe a multiple of them. I don't remember.
Yeah.
And it slowed commerce down to a snail's pace.
Yeah.
And so, okay, that's another thing where we could create a system whereby we have commerce and we have the rest of the general public.
Yeah.
And we could dedicate resources to doing checks in both cases, and especially in commerce, to make sure that it went a little faster and a little more efficiently.
Like staff specially trained in checking like semis and like for like commerce, the semis and box trucks and such.
These are the kinds of problems that require some thinking, some nuance in the thinking, and we're just trying to make a one-size-fits-all approach, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Was filmed back in 2019, and this is how things have been at the border for a long time. And you know what this shows us?
Oh, 2019, that would be under Trump then.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's kind of pathetic considering how he's performing these days.
They were learning what they were doing. Trump didn't understand the levers of government.
Well, 2019 was towards the end of his term.
That doesn't matter. He didn't have the people that he's got in place now who are willing to do things that are pushing the envelope on legality and all this. But even so, now there is no clamping down on that particular problem by the current administration, because if there was, you would hear about it in terms of the commerce and getting goods to and from the border. So, the only thing that might be making it more difficult, ironically, would be the tariffs. the demand for goods from Mexico might go down as a result, and so there might be fewer trucks coming. But that's not a way to solve your gang problem.
Well, I mean, in a weird sense, it could.
Yeah, but
because if the tariffs are high,
it's got ramifications you don't want.
Yeah, but it's like the weird sense is if the tariffs are high enough, then you would want to ship them all at once, not one at a time through a checkpoint, and therefore you'd probably use cargo ships rather than trucks.
Yeah, well, whatever.
This shows us that if you're going to give criminals the opportunity to do their thing in your country, that puts everyone's rights in jeopardy, because how are these guys arming themselves? Well, they're paying off conspirators who can legally buy this stuff, who then just transfer it to them. Of course, that's against the law, but nothing's being done about it, and we're giving these criminals...
To me, this, for those of our audience who might be Magic the Gathering players or similar games, this is a going wide strategy.
Yeah.
I have a goblin deck, and I use Krenko, and he makes goblins in a exponential, rapid ramping.
For reference, going wide means you're not focusing on powerful stuff. Like if we were to compare Magic the Gathering strategies to weapons, the cartels would be going wide, where they're trying to find every single loophole and crack. and the U.S. would be more like the Voltron, where they want everything to be super powerful.
Yeah, well, and in this case, they're not just sending 1 or 2 or 10. They're sending as many runners in vehicles across the border as they can, and because it's a scattershot screening, yeah, 1 or 2 here and there are going to get caught.
Yeah, it's a shotgun approach.
But the vast majority, yeah, that's another apt example. The vast majority are going to get through. Yeah, and that's how it is.
A two-way street in and out of our country. At least we were for a long time. Such a long time that these guys empowered themselves to a level where they are now endemic to Mexico. There's nothing the Mexican government right now is able to do to stop them. That's why they're still around. Some of these cartels have been around since the 60s. But allowing criminals to free...
Oh?
Has it occurred to us that maybe the drug cartels get the vast majority of their arms from the United States, the cartels in Mexico, and so in fact the United States is the source of the power of those cartels down in Mexico, and the government of Mexico can't get them under control because they're powerless to be able to stop it?
That is definitely a good point for at least some decades ago. You might not know this, but it's actually insane just how much money the cartels have.
Yeah.
They have what's called narco subs. They have literal submarines for drug trafficking.
Wow. Well, I knew they employed helicopters. I didn't know they had submarines. Wow.
Yep. So maybe some decades ago, maybe 2 or 3, that would have been a good point. These days, the cartels have a lot more power.
Once they get all that money, I mean,
yeah,
they
they
do
got
all
the
kinds of
foothold.
things, but the point is that the arms that are so prevalent in our country that are fueling these gangs.
Yeah.
I got a stinking hunch that they're fueling the drug cartels as well.
Yeah.
And that's where the biggest source of our problem. If we cut that off,
yeah.
Hello.
And I don't really understand why the U.S. doesn't take a harsher stance with Mexico of control your cartels or we will.
Well, but if we're the ally, unwittingly the ally to the drug cartels, being able to help them get armed,
then yeah, that would be.
How in the hell do they get control? Does that make sense?
That would make sense, and it also would make sense from the point of view of, in case that rumor where the Department of Defense is supplying munitions to these groups, they would not want to either. So.
Well, I don't know if there's a conspiracy like that. I'm hesitant to buy into conspiracies until there's some serious evidence of it.
Yeah.
But the fact that we have such a loose gun market in this country tells me that we're our own worst enemy.
Yes. It's one of the reasons why I personally regret believing in, when COVID first happened, that it came from bats, because something I found out years later, they never found, I'm forgetting the term, not indicator species. I think it was origin species, I forget. They never found a specific species that it originates from, and now the prevalent and accepted theory is it was a lab leak.
Yeah, yeah, and it's probably the case.
So it's a good idea to keep rumors in mind, but you want to find evidence.
Yeah. Just asserting something doesn't make it so.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Freely pass in and out of your country doesn't just make things worse for people in neighborhoods near the border. Oh no, it also makes things worse for people in neighborhoods everywhere, even up here in the Northeast.
After an historic gang bust, Tren de Aragua is a violent Venezuelan gang that officials say slipped into the city pretending to seek asylum.
27 suspected transnational TDA gang members indicted in a historic RICO conspiracy. Their alleged crimes began 2 years ago when they arrived in New York City from Venezuela seeking asylum, according to investigators.
So in New York City, we've got the same problems that you've got in Mexico. We've invited criminals into our city. We haven't done anything to stop the prevalence and growth of this gang until recently. And what have they done? They've grown and they're getting their hands on weapons. They're becoming incredibly dangerous. They're putting everybody in our city in danger. And the weapons you see on the table here were confiscated from criminals living in apartments in our city, down the hall from families. This is incredibly disturbing. But none of it would have happened if these gang members had never been allowed in the country in the first place. But instead, we let them in without checking to see who they were, which allowed them to come into major cities
and you and I have discussed this privately before, but this is one of the reasons why I think, like, naturally we need to change our immigration process, but I think we should have temporary... I know asylum's not the word, because that has the connotation of locking up.
Like a probation period or something? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, no, just like, I would call them asylums because the people are seeking asylum, but just like temporary housing along the border.
Okay, like a sanctuary, but
that double as immigration ports.
Like a holding.
Yeah, so that they could stay there, go through the process, not have to live out in the rain and all that. And then we should also update our immigration process so it doesn't take 20 years.
Right. Yeah.
So, in the case of letting them through, that could be a case of there's just so many people waiting, which of course might now be cut down a lot by the people mostly leaving the border, apparently. But
there's people in the country that have been legally waiting because they've gotten documentation that allows them to, because they're waiting for their turn. And we've had ones who have been processed at the border and told to wait in Mexico until their turn, which, Kingdom Come could come before then. For how long they have to wait. And so, this is the system is so terribly broken.
Especially with New York, because something that I found out, I want to say this was maybe a month or two ago. Apparently, New York rents out, basically buys hotel rooms monthly, and they use that as immigrant shelters. And I know one of the hotels is a famous hotel, but anyways, apparently it's like $4,200 a month in room and board at these hotels per room. And when I heard that figure, I calculated my monthly wage and compared it to that. These immigrants in New York, which is a sanctuary city, are getting double my monthly wage in just room and board.
Well, they're getting it, but they're not getting it. They're getting the room that's probably way overpriced, but because they're in New York City and real estate being what it is in New York City, it comes at a prime price. So it's going to be naturally more expensive.
Which you'd think the government would have some common sense, have an inspector go around and evaluate the rooms and the market price and all that.
Yeah, there should be some reasonable limits. I mean, it's not right to fleece the government because you can get a contract. So you've got that issue, and I guess we don't have enough time here to get into the sanctuary city issue for now because we're dealing with this video. But
yeah.
But
which congratulations, Dad. We're almost done, and we've turned a 15-minute video into an hour and a half.
Oh well, hopefully people want to watch us that long. Anyway, that's another subject for another day.
Yeah.
Okay, let's finish it up.
And start recruiting all over the country. And this should be all the proof we need that a broken immigration system is the wrong way to do things here.
The American dream is not doing armed robberies. The American dream is not discharging guns. The American dream is not shooting.
Other TDA members are alleged to have pulled off a series of robberies on mopeds. President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, praised the work of the NYPD and Homeland Security for the takedown and removal of 33 guns, but criticized the city council for being the administration's adversary.
Why would you not want ICE to take possession of a terrorist member?
So the reason progressives in cities like New York that are sanctuary cities have such a problem with this is because every time gang members get taken down, it proves that having an open border is a bad idea. And the scary thing is that we're...
I do inherently disagree with that, because like New York is on the opposite side of the country. An open border is not going to save New York.
Well, okay, so this is one of those instances where people need to be sitting across the table from one another and having a genuine discussion, and not this hurling of ad hominem attacks, saying, well, the only reason is because they think this way, when that is not what they're thinking. There is a genuine lack of trust of the federal government to do the right thing in every situation, and they've proven themselves because they've been apprehending all kinds of people that aren't at the top of the list.
Yeah. And even state government, because I don't know if you know this about New York. At least recently, they have police policies where if they arrest someone, they usually release them either within like 15 to 30 minutes or at most a couple hours. So someone could be picked up for like brandishing a weapon or vandalism or something, and they could be out that same day and just do it again. So I would say New York's issues is probably more of a local issue than federal.
Well, there's that. You've no doubt heard the statistics. I mean, the United States, what's the I hope I'm quoting this reasonably close to factual. The United States has what, 5% of the world's population, and we are among the top, if not the top by a mile, of those countries that have a significant portion of their population incarcerated. So,
maybe that math is wrong.
Yeah, okay.
Let's...
What is it, 7.5 billion people, 8 billion people?
It's supposed to be like 8. Why is it not coming up
and
there?
We're about 350 million.
World population 2025. Projected to be 8.2, and USA population 2025.
340 million.
Yeah.
So do the math.
That's what I tried to do. Maybe
Got a calculator?
Maybe I did it wrong. So 8200, so that's million. That's billion.
Well, you don't do the. That's the number at the bottom. You do the top number, the 340 million.
Yeah, that's what I tried before.
And divide it by the.
Okay. whatever it is, it's going to negative power. So
okay.
it's
Well, all right. So it's even less than 5%, I suspect. and our percentage of the population that's incarcerated compared to other countries is wildly different.
let's see. Quick Google search says
4.22. I wasn't too far off. Okay. Well, anyway, you get the point.
Yeah.
So again, we're putting up a straw man and then knocking him down.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't the New York City Council want us to arrest a terrorist? Last time I checked, I don't think that's the problem. Their problem is that the Trump administration doesn't respect I can't think of it now. Due process. They don't respect due process.
I would agree. I do think there should be due process. I just think the due process is really simple. You should be able to just look up the name of the person and the date of birth and maybe some other specific info depending on how many verifiers you need.
And if they're a true terrorist, then presumably you've got them. You've found them with weapons on their person or in their vehicle or something. I mean, let's but let's be transparent about what we're finding. Don't keep us in the dark and make us. Oh well, don't you trust us? Well, no.
Yeah. But continuing the point, I feel like there should be due process. But the due process is a very simple one. You should be able to look up the verifiers of the person. Do they have recorded legal documents saying they're either in the middle of immigration or have received lawful immigration? If not, kick them out.
It may take some time to do some vetting, but the point is it shouldn't take 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of the issue is the fact that the government stores way too much records in paper. I don't know if you know about this, but they have a huge vault in a mountain just of citizens' information.
Yeah.
So it's like the government is horribly inefficient.
Learning that this open border puts the rights of law-abiding Americans in jeopardy. The right to bear arms is guaranteed to all Americans, yet that right might have to go away if we allow anybody to come into our country and obtain weapons when they shouldn't, which puts everybody in danger, revealing that we don't have rights if we don't have borders and we can't control our own country. This is very frightening. And the fact of the matter is that if we had zero criminals in our country, the opportunity to collaborate with them would not exist. What do you think about that? Thank you so much.
I do think that last point is very idealistic. At no point are we going to have zero criminals, whether foreign or domestic.
You can lock your borders completely and nobody goes in or out and you're still going to have issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Like even North Korea, where it's a very stringent dictatorship, South Korea still gets defectors from time to time.
So again, a piece like this, to me, we want to pile all the problems just on immigration. And it's not just on immigration. There are certainly problems with our immigration system, and he's admitted as such, although I think, if we had a chance to sit down, his view of it is we let far too many people in the country. And my view of it is we're not screening, and we're not giving a process whereby there's enough immigration judges and there's enough personnel to process the people so that we can weed out the criminals from the folks that are trying to seek a better life.
I think a way to summarize it is you're saying he thinks we're letting too many people in, but you think we're letting too many people in too fast.
too fast in some regard and too slow in others. It's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
But the point is that the way this video attacks the problem, it's almost a veiled it's almost a veiled broad brush painting.
Yeah.
It's all the immigrants' fault, and
yeah,
it's that is not nuanced near enough to
Yeah.
my mind.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you are correct in that regard. The issue is a lot of people. It's like when you don't have. This might sound weird, but if you don't have control over your borders and you get the illegal people coming in, then the general populace doesn't really care who's good or not. They're just going to see the entire group of legals and illegals as one thing and paint it as a broad brush. When there is more nuance and people should do better
Sure.
diligence about that kind of thing.
And let me bring out one other point. Whether the criminals are from south of the border or within our borders, I think it has to be acknowledged that when you are the world's richest country and you've got a bunch of people who, for whatever reason, feel slighted,
Yeah.
are they going to go after the other poor people? No, they're going to go where the wealth is. Well, just let me finish the thought. If you're going to rob a bank, you don't rob the poorest bank in town. You rob the one that's got the most, don't you? I mean, you might go after them both at some point, but the point is you go where the wealth is concentrated. So
I would actually argue opposite of that, because the bank that's going to have more money is going to be the better protected bank.
Well,
You'd want to target the smaller ones where you have less opportunity to either be caught
okay.
or for screw ups.
So you're picking on my figure of speech in
Yeah.
terms of how I'm trying to lay this out, and what I'm driving at is if we were doing a better job of helping these developing nations to the south have a decent living, there would be far less need for drug cartels, because it wouldn't be near as attractive. It's not going to solve all the problem. I'm not a wild-eyed dreamer here, but it's clear that there's a lot of poverty, and there are some who are tired of poverty.
Yeah.
And they've decided, you know what? Those north of the border don't give a damn about us, and our own government doesn't give a damn about us, so why should we give a damn? We're going to take what they have.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Which is why, if I ever happen to become president, I'm not sure if I'll ever even get the actual opportunity, other than like, oh, here's my name on the ballot, vote for me, I get 5 votes. If I ever somehow actually become president, I would love to negotiate with Canada to form something similar to the European Union. Initially, I would likely have to force Mexico, and then we could have...
Well, I don't know if you'd have to force them. I think if you give
Well,
the right incentives.
I mean, yes, with the right incentives, but I'm referring to force more because of the cartels would likely resist it, I'm thinking.
Oh, no doubt.
So that's probably why, because the cartels at this point are basically a shadow government.
But you know, if those in government in Mexico, if they truly want to solve the problem, and if the American government and the Canadian government in combination could provide the resources so that those in Mexican government wouldn't have to feel like their lives are under threat, because they are.
Yeah.
If they start to go after the cartels.
Yeah.
Then maybe they'd be willing to go along.
Yeah. But it's just like, just going back to my union examples, like when Brexit happened, we've seen the aftermath and how many British people regret that the UK left the EU.
Yeah.
It's like, a lot of people don't realize a good thing when they have it. And so I think that if Canada, the US, and Mexico made a union and we had better interconnected prosperity, the wealth would flow around, people's quality of living would get better, we'd have better multiculturalism like the EU does.
Well,
and
I think there's ways to do that without an EU style situation.
Well, the EU style would be more for the open borders they have between the associated countries.
Yeah, I get that.
Makes travel easier.
Europe is an interesting case because they were trying to create a situation where they would have collectively more economic clout to compete with a United States of America or a China or whatever. With our situation, I'm sure if you took a poll, you would get more than 50% that would say, no, we don't want an EU style something that the United States becomes a part of, because the fear is that we lose our sovereignty. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah, the Brexit argument.
And so it made more sense for Europe than it does because of the United States being the way it is.
Well, part of the reason the European Union was formed was because of the aftermath of World War II and all the countries having to rebuild.
Well, I think that came far later. I think the Marshall Plan took care of the rebuilding. It was this business of trying to create a system whereby Europe, instead of having 30 plus different sets of rules, they would have one set of rules to do international trade, and make them more competitive as a result.
Okay, never mind. The European Union is much more recent than I thought.
Yeah.
I thought it was within like a decade or two after World War II.
No.
This says it didn't happen until just before I was born.
Yep, exactly. So.
Okay.
But in the case of the United States and Canada and Mexico and frankly Central and South America, we need a foreign policy that the United States engages in, similar to what we had with NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, whereby we stand up to what was the primary foe at the time when it was formed, the Soviet Union and Communist China were the big two. Soviet Union has since gone away, but now we have Vladimir Putin, and he is trying to bring back the Soviet Union. There still needs to be a NATO, and again, that's a subject for another day.
Yeah.
What we're dealing with here is trying to create a better standard of living for people from Mexico all the way down to the tip of South America, number one. And number two, create the conditions for governments of those countries to be able to create what we have in this country generally. I think we've slipped off the rails quite a bit from where we used to be in terms of having a peaceful society, in terms of having law and order. But again, it's not because and there's exceptions to everything. it's not primarily because law enforcement isn't doing their job. It's because we've created a situation whereby law enforcement is up against increasingly difficult odds of more and more powerful weapons and ammunition, and people who have even armored themselves so as to be less of an easy target, so that they can do more harm. And this isn't just individuals, this is gangs, whether it's north or south of the border. And we've got handguns all over the place, and where we have poor neighborhoods and people are fighting over limited resources, and we get murders left and right. I mean, come on. We need to wise up.
Yeah.
Pure and simple. That's
Yeah.
enough. So, well, anyway,
yeah,
that was our first trial run. I think one of the things, just in hindsight, we could do differently maybe is we should review that video before we start recording. We can run it again for the sake of the audience, but I think maybe having reviewed it and made a few points would be beneficial.
That could be, but I also like the
spontaneity.
the spontaneity of it.
Spontaneity.
I didn't remember how it ended, so. But because then we're giving our thoughts in real time and forming opinions over time.
Okay.
Rather than going in and possibly sounding fake.
So then the question is and maybe this could be something where people weigh in on this. What's their thought on that? Are we better off just doing it, kind of winging it by the seat of our pants like we're doing the spontaneity, or do we need to tighten it up just because of time?
Oh, hey, look, we got one subscriber. Thank you, Nathan Rocks, 1900. Nathan is 100% right. Screw off, Steve.
Thank you very much. All right.
Anyways.
Hope you enjoyed what we tried to do.
Yeah. Thank you.